So this time last year, WOLFBOX sent out this little MF100 air duster for me to try out and test. What little did I know is this was going to become quite the hot item last year, right around Christmas time. They sold a ton of these things. It became a pretty popular deal. Fast forward a year later, and they've now come out with an MF200 with a couple upgrades where they listened to the feedback, where they missed the mark on this little MF100 unit. So essentially with the MF200 here, what you're going to be getting with it versus the old unit here, the main thing is going to be the fact that you have a battery that now comes out and you can swap the batteries out in this unit, thus being able to use this thing as long as you got extra batteries anyways. You could keep using this unit while you got a battery on the charger at all times. This does come with one battery, but you could purchase these batteries separate. So they did send out a second battery for me to try out as well. And essentially these little batteries take about 2.5 hours to fully charge, and then if you're running this thing full time in the turbo mode, you're going to be getting around 10 minutes. Now the runtime on these things is pretty similar. I did go ahead and run a runtime test. I did that test twice with each unit in the turbo mode. I'm getting right at 10 minutes even on this unit here before the battery dies. On this unit here, I'm getting 10 minutes and 45 seconds. So the runtime on turbo mode, I'm getting about 45 seconds more out of this unit. Difference being, I have to put this one back on the charger for 2.5 hours each time, let it run before I can run it again. Whereas this one here, I can pull that battery out, swap to the other one, and have a battery charging at all times. So right off the bat, that's a pretty big plus in my eyes, especially if you're using this thing quite a bit, giving yourself a little bit more runtime. Then you can buy as many batteries as you decide you want to. These little batteries aren't too overly expensive either. In fact, I'd probably pick up a couple of them myself if it was me buying this unit, just to be able to have this thing, because I've honestly found quite a few uses for this little thing. It's one of those things that I store in like the kitchen drawer, and if I need to go blow off like one of the air filters for like one of my air purifiers in one of my bedrooms, or if I need to clean out the furnace real quick, you name it, because it moves so much air, it's really taken over a lot of the task, especially because it's so small, and I can fit this thing in a lot of places that you can't fit, like a can of compressed air, or even like a leaf blower for that instance if you're using this thing outside. Now when it comes to the form factor on these units here, you will notice there's a little bit difference in size. The newer MF200 has a little bit more height to it, as well as it's a little longer on the nose section here. The weight's pretty close, but this is about 3 ounces heavier. So this one weighs in at 14 ounces, whereas this one here weighs in at 11. So that's really the biggest differences in these. Other than that, feature-wise, they're both the same. So they both have this trigger back here where it's going to adjust the speed. So when you hold these both down, it's going to turn the unit on. They automatically default to the turbo speed. And then you've got 3 speeds on each of these that you can run these at. So in that turbo speed here, you got the trigger on the front here. When you pull that trigger, you can see that they both work in that turbo mode. Now in the turbo mode, you have to pull and hold the trigger to actually get that unit to run. However, in the medium and the slow speeds, as soon as you hit that trigger, they'll continuously run until you hit the trigger again. So just keep that in mind. Now I want to try to give you guys some testing on these to see if I could tell a difference in the performance as well. And I want to take a second here to also go through what this kit comes with. Now they both come pretty much identical with the exception of one nozzle. On the MF100, they included this tip, whereas on the MF200, they don't anymore. So you still get these 3 tips here that come with the kit, as well as the one that comes on the unit itself, which is that circular nozzle. And then they also both come with the brush as well. So if you're gonna be trying to clean out the inside of a keyboard on a computer or trying to get in cracks and crevices, you've got these tools as well. And then last but not least, you get the nice little storage bag. They both have identical bags. They didn't really change anything there. Now when it came to the performance on these, I wanted to see if I could put together a test for you guys so I could show you the difference in performance between these two, because there is a slight gain in performance on this new MF200 over the MF100. So the first test I want to go ahead and run for you. Now, I've done this several times now to try to see if I can get the max on all these tests that I've ran, but I went ahead and I grabbed my little decibel meter and I wanted to see how loud this unit was on each of them. So I kind of ran them both like this, ran that in the turbo mode. And the max dB I'm getting on this MF100 is going to be 92 decibels. On the other unit here, this one is a tick louder. So when I run that same test, I'm coming in at right at 99 dB. So the newer MF200 is about 7 dB louder than the older unit that they came out with last year. Now the next test I had, because I've got an anemometer here at the house, and I kind of use this thing for testing just like this, and I've got my nice fancy little 3D printed cone here as well. This little unit here, it doesn't test CFM, but it will test like knots, mile per hour, and meters per second. So I've been running these tests with both of these units to see if I can get the max performance out of each one, and I have kind of also played with the tips as well to see which tip gives me the best performance. So after testing all the nozzles with both of these units, I did notice that this particular nozzle seems to give me the best results when it came to this testing. So that's what I'm going to give you for the numbers when it comes to the comparison on these two. Now something else you're going to notice as well, if I take these nozzles off, I cannot take the old nozzle and put it on the new air duster. Basically what they've done is they've increased the bore size on these units, so this one's just a little bit bigger, and that's where a lot of that performance gain is going to come from. But let's go ahead and run these tests here real quick, and then I'll run you through my best numbers that I was able to achieve with each of these units, and you can see the performance gain between these two. So if I go ahead and I set up my meter here, and I tried to run these tests as accurately and evenly as possible. Nothing here is going to be overly officially scientific, but just for sake of example, to kind of give you guys an idea. If I run this thing, I've got it set in miles per hour, and if I put it in the max mode, essentially I would run this test in the turbo mode, just like this. And then I see what my max result was. I did that test with both units across all the parameters I was able to test on this particular anemometer. And the max I was able to see on the mile per hour was 77 miles per hour. On the MF100, it was 50 miles an hour. So we've got a 27 mile per hour difference between this unit and this unit using these nozzles. When I went to measure meters per second, we're looking at 20.5 meters per second on the newer model versus around 19 meters per second on this unit. So about 1.5 difference on the two units here when it comes to that measurement. And then knots, if you're measuring knots, I don't particularly use knots for anything, but just for sake of example, in case you guys are interested in that number, I was able to see 66 knots out of the anemometer with this unit versus 41.5 out of this one. So it's like a 27.5 knot difference between the two. So this one does move a good amount of air more than the older MF100 does. Biggest difference that's going to come with that though is the fact that this one is just a little bit noisier and just a tick heavier. However, the trade-off for that is you don't have a battery you can replace in this one, so you have to charge it every single time, versus this one here you can buy 10 batteries or as many batteries as you want to have for this unit, have those laying around and fully charged, ready to go. So you can just pop that battery out, swap it over, and you're back running again. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful. I think they've made some pretty good upgrades on this MF200 over the MF100. Either way you go though, I don't think you can go wrong. They both offer a good amount of performance out of them, and honestly, over the last year, I've come up with a ton of different uses that I grabbed this thing for. It's really kind of been handy to have in the kitchen drawer, like I mentioned, in our junk drawer, and just be able to pull this out when I need it. Other than that, that's all I've got for you in this video, guys. I hope that was somewhat helpful. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think, whether this MF200 is going to be worth the investment over the MF100. I think that's where I'll leave you on this video, though. Appreciate you watching. We'll catch you guys in the next video.